Awakened Hardest Podcast with John White.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Awakened Hardest Podcast. I am the Awakened Hardest, John White. I wanted to try something a little different today. This is a little bit of an experiment. I just recently found out while doing my yard work that my neighbor next door, that their dog had passed away, which was a bit of a shock. My dog is about, I think she's 4, maybe 5. I think she's 5 now. And the neighbor dog was slightly younger. So we basically got puppies at the same time. And we've always joked that my dog, Kira, and Rocky, the next door neighbor, they were boyfriend and girlfriend because they always were yapping at each other through the fence. It's a little tough, and I wanted to try to do this because it's in the middle of the emotions of just finding out, and it's something that I'm not used to dealing with. I guess it's definitely a new sense of grief, and I get it that it's just the neighbor dog, but he's always been a little buddy to me, and overall the most difficult part of it is the neighbor boy. He is in 3rd grade. He's an only child, and I just can't imagine how tough it is for him. And he's the one that actually told me. Like I said, I was outside doing some gardening work and some prep work for the garden this year, and I noticed that he was digging too and doing something, and I offered him a couple of my bunching onion seeds to see if he could grow it, give him a little challenge. And he looked over at me and he said, well, I don't have to worry about Rocky digging up the seeds. And I had asked why, and he said he had passed away a couple of days. I asked him what happened, and he said that he had a false liver. I'm not really familiar with what exactly that means when it comes to an animal, or a human, I guess. I don't know much about that. I just was kind of shocked. I had a little bit of a sense that something had happened because the dog wasn't outside with him, and typically he's always outside playing with him if he's out in the backyard. Man, I just felt so fucking bad for him. And I do now. I feel heartbroken for the kid. Like I said, he's an only child, and that dog has been with him since he's been a little guy. And he's still a little guy at this point. It's got to be tough for him. And I'm getting ready to go pick up my kids. They've been on vacation for a week with their mom. And I got to tell them, I know it's going to be a little tough on them because this is the first time they've had to deal with an animal dying. They're both very compassionate when it comes to animals and have a very deep love and connection with all the animals. The neighbor dogs, they like to jump the fences and go over and pet them and hang out with them. And I know it'll be a little difficult for them. And I know that causes a reaction in our minds to think what would it be like for us to lose our dog. And that's one of the things that, first came to mind for me. It hit me with some emotions, and granted it's a full moon, and I'm always typically overly emotional around a full moon. Just the idea of him losing his dog, and Rocky was my little buddy. He always came up to greet me at the fence every time I would pass by, doing gardening work in the backyard and cutting the grass or whatever. He was a sweet dog. Noisy as fuck, but yeah, I just, and I thought about my boys and having to tell them, and I know it's going to kind of hit them because they haven't seen Kira or Ben, our dog and cat, in the past week, so there's a little bit of emotion going on there. And I just thought, this would be a good time to hop on and maybe do a quick little podcast on the fresh emotions of the situation and that processing. I do feel a little guilty because I did freeze up. I do a podcast about grieving and talking about how I grieve quite a bit, and I have so many tools at my disposal to be able to do so. And thinking that I really, not to turn this into being all about me, but I guess it is. I mean, it's my podcast. I didn't know what to do in the moment. That bothers me a little bit, that I didn't know what to say to him. I just said to him, I'm sorry, dude, that really sucks. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. I didn't know how else to be comforting to a 8-year-old, 9-year-old in the moment that he just lost his dog, and the emotions kind of hit me, and I'd walked away because I was done at that point. And after I thought about it for a second, I felt bad that I didn't know how to comfort him a little better in the situation, and I don't know if that was really necessarily my job, but I felt a little bit of a responsibility to kind of do something for him. I don't know. I don't really know what I could have done. The empathy part comes out. You just wish you could do a little bit more or say something a little more comforting, and there really isn't anything. And I should know this. I should really know how this goes. I do take this as a little bit of a learning experience because, again, someone who's doing a podcast that's based on grieving at the moment, this situation happens. It's not like somebody lost their child, but in a sense, to him, and maybe even to them, it does feel that way. It's just a different perspective. We have these relationships with people, animals, and I oddly have relationships with my plants. But, those bonds grow with time. It's really hard to replace a pet. I lost, when I was a teenager, I only was able to have one dog. I always lived in an apartment up until I was about a freshman, and my grandfather had shocked me with getting me a dog for Christmas, and it was one of the best things. I mean, her and I would walk my property and hang out all the time. Well, I don't know, about 2 years after us living there, we had to leave. We had to leave and move to North Carolina, and the place that we were going, we had to stay with my aunt, and my uncle wouldn't allow us to have a dog. So my aunt here, she kept the dog for us, and that was so difficult, having to leave my dog behind. We only lived there for about 3-4 months, and then we came back and we moved in with my dad. Then the dog came with me there, so that was nice to be able to be with her again. But living on the property that we lived on, she never, wasn't a fenced-in yard. She just kind of wandered around all the time. And when we moved into my dad's trailer, it was a trailer park, and there wasn't anywhere. She always had to be put on a leash, or not a leash, a chain. She was miserable. And every chance she got, she would book it out the door. She would take off and go exploring. And one day she just never came home. That was tough. I knew that she wanted to. I was hoping that maybe she ran away somewhere to some kind of farm or something, and somebody had took her in, and that she just lived happily on this farm. I did meet a medium later on, though, that brought up and described her to a T, and said that she had got stuck on a fence and she had died. And that's a tough memory or idea of her passing. As real as that may be or not, to me, I definitely could see that was a possibility, just because of the way she described her. Yeah, it was tough. And I take that as my only situation of understanding a close pet that had passed, and I feel a lot of empathy for the little boy. Again, hopefully this is his first experience with death, and he doesn't have anything else in his family. I'm not very close with my neighbors. And hopefully this is the last he has for quite a while. But it's a tough lesson to learn what it is to not be with I don't know, the dog to him is probably a sibling in a sense. And that sucks. I just wanted to try to process all of this with the microphone in front of my face and have some raw emotion towards all of it and see where it goes. And I feel just by talking it out, with it not being someone that I'm very close to, again, like I said, the dog has been my neighbor for the past 4 or 5 years, and it sucks. Yeah, I just wanted to see what happened, and I don't know, I guess experiment is a success maybe. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you tuning in to my podcast and taking the time to hear my words, realizing that grieving comes in all kinds of forms. I definitely didn't think I would be at all emotional about the neighbor's dog passing, but it affected me in a couple ways. I have a better understanding of who I am and how I can view myself going forward. I can see the compassionate side of me, the empathetic side of me, and knowing that is a strength, and I hope to maybe have some better words in the future for anybody, and maybe to come across a little more comforting in a situation like this. That's what I've learned. And again, I appreciate you listening. If you'd like to learn more about me and my experiences, follow @AwakenHartist on Instagram or visit the website awakenhartist.com.